Greatest adventure the human race has ever embarked upon. We have put men on the moon, sent robotic emissaries to the edges of our solar system, and delivered twin rovers to Mars. Yet the adventure has only just begun. The dream of space is the dream of all humankind. And as Carl Sagan so eloquently put it, dreams are maps. Tonight, inspired by imagination, launched by innovation, and fueled by the human spirit, we will chart the course to that dream. A dream that has been available only to a chosen few. Until now. Hello, everyone. I'm LeVar Burton. Welcome to Mission Space. During the next hour, we'll journey to the past through NASA's most awe-inspiring moments. Zoom to the present with the Mars Rovers team, which has made amazing new discoveries. And then we'll teleport to the future, the year 2036 to be exact, as we join 4 astronaut recruits here at the International Space Training Center at Mission Space. New attraction at Epcot, part of the Walt Disney World Resort near Orlando, Florida. So, hang on tight and get ready to launch into the greatest e-ticket adventure of all time. It all began with a vision that inspired a nation and a speech that would set events into motion to change the course of history.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
All right, lift off and the clock is started. Bridget 7 standing by for impact.
The spacecraft is on the water. After about 700 yards.
We close with good night, good luck, a Merry Christmas, and God bless all of you on the good earth.
Precious Doe, all engines. Roger. Okay, throttle has it up.
Looks good here, flight. Good agreement.
Okay, boost ahead of you, though. S1C looks good, flight. Picking up some dust. Pound and a half. Contact light. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
It is. Good job. Let's see that. Look at that.
And we have liftoff of America's first space shuttle. And the shuttle has cleared the tower.
The Doppler signature indicates through stage separation has occurred. Copy that. All systems are go.
I'm here in Planetary Plaza at Epcot, and behind me is one of the most extraordinary attractions ever created by the Disney Imagineers, Mission Space. One that would have had Walt himself, no doubt, manning the captain's seat for the premiere launch. Now, this technological marvel opens the capsule door for the first time to ordinary people like you and me, giving us the chance to feel the adrenaline rush of blasting off from Earth, to know the thrill and danger of journeying to Mars. Joining me now are 4 special guests, our astronaut recruits, who are about to take part in the ultimate space mission.
Jean comes from a household of flight. Her husband and son are both pilots. Michael is in a band composing the first song to be broadcast from the International Space Station. Bettina is a connoisseur of thrill rides. Seth has won science awards and has been to space camp several times. Recruits, please report to pre-flight training.
You guys excited?
Yes.
Yeah? Let's go. Decades in the dreaming and some 5 years in the making, Mission Space is an experience that required the latest in technology and the talents of a host of experts. But the idea to build a space attraction here at Epcot began almost 20 years ago.
At Disneyland Park, the realm devoted to things of the future is called Tomorrowland.
Imagineering has worked for many, many years on different space concepts. And if you actually look way back to the opening day of Epcot, we even had some concepts on the board for a space-type attraction 20 years ago. And we just weren't happy with it.
Many of the things that seem impossible now will become realities tomorrow.
Once we developed the concept and were very, very confident that we had a concept that was going to appeal to our guests and really meet all of the goals that we had set for ourselves, We then had to go into a stage where we actually create documentation, and we really figure out how do you take that concept and how do you now make it real.
More than 650 Disney Imagineers spent some 350,000 hours, the equivalent of 40 years, to blend Disney's long-standing tradition of storytelling with state-of-the-art space technology.
For us to tell the kind of story that we have to tell, it's a challenge to make sure that you bring all the disciplines together, because you know, we've got what colors want to help tell our story, the environments, music. You know, music is a mood-setting piece and an element. We want to bring all these pieces together to be able to tell one singular story.
Many times you're waiting for a technology to catch up to the grand story you're trying to tell. And space is such a big story. We wanted to make sure we had an attraction that lived up to its billing.
From early on, everyone knew that for a project this big, they would need help from the experts. So it's no coincidence that Disney Imagineers created Mission Space with the help of Hewlett-Packard and the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, better known as NASA.
This is the aspect of inspiring the next generation of explorers. It's a very critical part of what we do. It's an opportunity to demonstrate to kids that math and science can be brought to life, that you can do things with it, that you can accomplish some things that just you only dreamed about. And it takes the application of those principles in order to build the next Mars exploration rover.
They're the real deal. You know, astronauts and all the folks who created the technology and allowed us to explore space, they are people who are literally forging ahead into places we've never been.
The things we take seriously are very different than the things that NASA takes seriously. We'll have arguments over the exact color of Goofy's house, exactly what shade of blue, and exactly how it will look in the Florida sun versus California sun, and how it will look. All these studies. NASA needs to worry about, you know, things that seem real as opposed to stuff that seems sort of fanciful.
We met people that, you know, they're working on projects that are 10, 20, 30 years out. You know, what's the future of jet propulsion technology, you know, 30, 40 years from now? How are we going to analyze Martian soil when it comes back to Earth? And there are people that are actually working on that now, and they're devoting their life and their career to that.
There have been many incredible moments in NASA's history, but the one that made the whole world stop and wonder happened right here on July 20th, 1969. Millions of people around the world huddled around television sets, spellbound by the flickering black and white images being transmitted from 250,000 miles away. I was 11 years old, watching at home with my mother and two sisters in Sacramento, California. It's a night that anyone old enough to remember will certainly never forget.
The lunar program, when it happened, Kennedy pulled a decade out of the 21st century and put it right in the middle of the 60s.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth.
When man first walked on the moon, I was in Puerto Rico, growing up, a young child in a small town, dreaming about someday working for NASA. And here I am now, you know, directing the Mars exploration and solar system exploration program. A dream come true.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The three kids and my parents, we gathered around the television set and we were just absolutely silent. Just amazed and agog, as was the rest of the world.
I was surrounded by other astronauts that would later do the same thing, and to be in the midst of the community at that historic moment was something I'll never forget.
But I remember as a child, I had this little bitty screen, and I remember being in my yellow pajamas, sitting in front of the TV watching that. And I mean, it was amazing. It was phenomenal.
You do have to be rather careful to keep track of where your center of mass is. Sometimes it takes about 2 or 3 paces to make sure that you've got your feet underneath you.
I was sitting next to Walter Cronkite when Neil Armstrong took one giant step. Walter had this great, profound comment to make. Golly, gee, wow. And he wipes a tear off, as I did too.
As a child, looking at that and saying, that is just so incredible that we were able to do that. I actually didn't believe it at first, but now to think about landing on Mars is just beyond belief.
When we return, we'll take a closer look at NASA, who has been launching men and women on new space ventures for the last 43 years. And tonight, for the first time, you'll get to come along on a mission that's as close to the real thing as it gets.
The moon sculpture in the planetary plaza of Mission Space contains markers signifying all 29 lunar missions completed by the United States and the Soviet Union.
There is something inherently human about the desire to explore beyond boundaries, and yet it has always taken a unique kind of courage and a sense of daring to be the first to blaze new trails. So while many have dreamed, few have been chosen.
Well, I wanted to be an astronaut when I found it was possible to fly in space, which was around 1960, when the first people started going into space.
Godspeed, John Glenn. Lots of greats fired, okay.
There were two engineers and a shrink on the stage who asked us, would you like to get in a rocket? We said, no. I want a capsule on top? No. We're going to fly monkeys and chimpanzees first? No way. Well, it turned out I asked all my peers, and they said, Shroff, if you want to go higher, farther, and faster, this is the only way to do it.
At the time I got the phone call, I was in test pilot school. And a lot of the other test pilots that were in the school, as well as some of the instructors, were all waiting for that call. And the tradition is that if you get the phone call, and the phone call comes from George Abbey, who was the head of the Flight Crew Operations Directorate, that was the selection call.
Getting the call to be an astronaut was pretty incredible. I was actually at work. I used to work at the Kennedy Space Center, and I'd come in after a meeting and I had a message on my answering machine to call the Johnson Space Center. And seeing as how I had done this a year and a half before, I knew it could either be a good call or a bad call. It didn't necessarily mean it was a good call.
My boss called me in. I wondered what I was in trouble for. He told me that I was selected to fly on the third shuttle flight, and I nearly did handsprings out of the room.
It took me by surprise. It was a Monday morning. I just had my staff meeting. I was at the Naval Air Development Center in Warminster, Pennsylvania. And when the individual called, my secretary buzzed in. I didn't immediately recognize the name, and I almost did not take the call. When the individual finally got through and told me that I had been selected, it was just really an exciting time. I can't describe it.
It's a pretty big moment in your life. And I remember my husband saying to me, your life will never be the same again, and he was right. It changes everything.
Mission Space opened in October 2003. But like those pioneering NASA astronauts, Disney Imagineers got the call to design and build this mothership a full 5 years earlier.
We're storytellers here at Imagineering. Where's our mission going to take us? And so we had a number of meetings, and basically we landed on Mars, no pun intended, because that's man's next step in space.
There were so many other aspects of it, creating a unique facade that fit the landscape, a great place that told the story that was going to culminate in this journey.
And that process never stops. It goes all the way through until opening day, because you're always making tweaks, you're always making changes.
Welcome to Mission Space, everyone. I'm Michael Eisner, and all of us at the Walt Disney Company are thrilled that this day has arrived.
Everything is possible has never seemed more true than now when I look at the perfect blend of technology and entertainment and imagination and dreams that Mission Space reveals.
The Disney Imagineers embody the same kind of determination and pioneering spirit as the talented individuals of NASA's space program. Both have been able to make what seems impossible, possible.
Everybody has to work together. There has to be a lot of communication. So there's a lot of parallel between, say, you know, a space team or an astronaut mission and kind of what we do, just because we have so many people. We all have the same goal in sight, but we all have to work together.
So the hard part was trying to translate as accurately as possible the feeling that an astronaut goes through to what would be our normal guest.
And even astronauts have told us that NASA doesn't have a simulator that does